get right into it. So I'm just going to launch Photoshop. Okay, so this is what I'm taken to when I first land here. So here you're prompted to either create a new file or open a file. So usually when working with Photoshop, you're almost always working on some sort of photo. So I will dive into opening a photo, but I just wanted to quickly touch on this. So you've got tons of options here when you start a new file, but the most important are going to be here in this panel. So you can choose if you want to work in inches, in pixels, centimeters, etc. So if you want it to be 8 inches wide by 2 inches high, this is pretty much what it's going to look like, and then your resolution. So when working in Photoshop, I think it defaults to 72 DPI, which is anything on screen. So if you see anything on the web, anything on screen, it's going to be 72 DPI. If you're printing, you need it to be 300 DPI. Okay? Printers work in 300 and above, usually around there. Anything lower than that, your resolution is going to be pixelated, so minimum 300 for print. Color mode. So again, working with 72 resolution, if you're doing anything digital, you want to be RGB. Anything online, anything in the digital realm is always going to be RGB color. If you are working with print, again, you're going to be 300 and you're going to be CMYK. So CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. RGB, red, green, blue. That's just what it means. Again, so if we're doing print, we're going to change that to CMYK. And then your background, you can default it to white, black, or any other color. It doesn't really matter. And then you would just hit create. And so this is what I'm left with here. So this is because I've opened it up before, and this is how I had it the last time I was working. So Photoshop will always remember the way you set up all your boxes and all of your little options here. But one thing which is good, especially when you're first starting, is to arrange your workspace and to start fresh. And so what I would recommend is as soon as you open up Photoshop, go to Workspace, hit Essentials, Defaults, and I'm just going to reset because I've changed it all. So this is how it will open for you. This is the default workspace, and we've got Learn section here. So if you go into photography, retouching, combining images, this is everything that Adobe has sort of set up, all of these programs where you can learn little things, little tutorials, which is great. They're very informative. Some of them are basic, some of them are a little more advanced. It'll be helpful to know a little bit about Photoshop before watching any of these tutorials, but definitely great resource here. Library, so anything that I've used or I've put in my library, I can touch on that later. Your layers palette, properties, if you've got something here, it'll show you how wide, how high, and then of course your tools. And so all of these things can be moved. You can put them wherever you like. If you don't want it, you can get rid of it. If, for example, you got rid of something and you're like, oh, shoot, I need that. All you need to do is go to Window and then look for it here, and then it will come back. Okay? Another thing I wanted to touch on with you guys is your preferences. So if you click up here on the top left on Photoshop, CC, go to Preferences, and you go to, there's tons and tons of stuff here, but I'm just going to focus on units and rulers as the most important of all of these things here. So your units and your rulers currently are set to pixels, but if I wanted to work in inches, I could change it here. So this is where I would go from pixels to inches, centimeters, whatever. And type, usually we always work in points, like 10-point font, so we would want to leave that. Again, your resolution, pixels per inch, and screen resolution. So print resolution, like I said, 300, screen resolution, 72. So that's really useful to know there as well.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
When would you have to use pixels as opposed to inches?
So it all depends on what you're working on. For example, when I'm working on biophotos for our website of the lawyers, We have a specific size that those bio photos need to be for Gordon or for our website. Luckily, it's changed now. Gordon used to be like 300 pixels by 300 pixels, and then our web images were 800 by 800. So I'd have to be exporting it as two files. Now they're the same. But that's a prime example of it needs to be pixels because that's what it's registering. So the CMS, the content management system that's running it, only recognizes that specific size. So you could convert it,
Right.
and then
So I don't think we'll be using that.
no, you guys would most likely be working like in inches
Yeah.
and stuff, right? Yeah. Or centimeters. We're in Canada, should be working in centimeters. We never do.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. Let me just make sure I've gone through everything I wanted to explain here. Okay, and one more thing to mention is if you hit Control on my computer, it'll be Command R, it will bring up your rulers. Okay, so along the top, along the side here, I think I'm still in pixels, so it's showing me from here to here. So if you pull something out, you can give yourself a ruler this way, or if you pull from the top, you can bring yourself a ruler here. So this is 0, and then you see as we go down, now I'm at 100, and it'll also tell you as you're going, it'll sort of tell you on the screen there 89, 95 pixels. Yeah, so it's very helpful that way if you need it to be a specific size. Okay, so that's the basics of the workspace. So I'm going to get into opening a new file. So I'm just going to close this. I'm not going to save it. So opening a file, you can do a few different ways. Obviously, you can do file open and then open your file. Another way is just finding the image itself and then just saying open with. Or the one thing I love to do, which I'm not quite sure if it works on PC, but I'll show you guys anyway, is just dragging it right to,
It does work.
and then it opens. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be working on this image. And I've already sort of touched on color space with you guys. So I'm just going to double check and see what my image here is set at. So image size. So we're at 5,303 pixels. Resolution is 300. So I guess this image was intended for print. I'm totally fine with everything here. I don't need to change it to be a specific size, so I'm just going to leave that. So right away in our layers palette, we have this image and it's defaulted as background and it's locked. So a lot of the time people will just drag this to this little icon here, which is a new layer. So you can create a new layer, which is essentially like a sheet of acetate, like a clear piece of plastic or paper that's sitting on top of this layer. You could, for example, you could paint on this layer and it might look like I've ruined this picture, but if you click that little eyeball, which represents visual or non-visual, like see it, not see it, that thing, it's gone. So it hasn't actually affected this layer because it's on its own layer. You can delete layers just by hitting that delete. And you can also copy layers by pulling it down on top of that little icon. So now I've got a copy of this layer.
So this is the actual layer icon that's on
Yeah, exactly. New layer icon. There's masks, there's effects, there's lots of different things that I'm not going to even get into all of that. I'm just going to try and touch on the basics today. Okay, so we've got this copy here, and I'm going to leave my background alone just because it's good practice. I would always suggest leaving that background image because what if you messed it up and you want to go back and it's just too many step backwards? At least this way you could always just go back to that original file.
I'm sorry, can I ask you, you created, to get the two like that, you created a layer, and how did you get the image to go on the layer?
Oh, so I'll show you that again. So I'm just going to delete that guy. So here's my first layer.
Yeah.
I'm just going to click and drag right on top of that new layer icon, and I'm going to let go.
Oh, okay.
And that's it.
Okay. And that copied it.
And that copied it.
Can you do like a right click and hit copy?
Yep, duplicate layer.
Okay.
And then you can give it a name there, or you could just click right in here and just rename it whatever you want.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so first attempt.
But what about the acetate sheet that you had?
Yeah, that first.
Yeah, that first.
So this is a copy of that layer, but
Yeah.
just to create a blank layer, you would just click that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just add a new layer.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is layers. So I'm just going to delete these guys. I don't need them for now. Okay, and so again, I've touched just quickly on like naming your layers. You can name it like this, or you could just click right in there and name it. You could lock this layer too if you wanted to. You could just go, I'm pretty sure it's just, everything's always changing on me. Oh, sorry, it's right here. Yeah, so you just click that little guy there, and that layer is now locked. So you couldn't really do anything to that layer because you've locked it. And again, you can click on view, not view. And then another thing you can do is opacity. So you could play with the opacity. So say, for example, we're just looking at this original layer here. Actually, no, it's locked, so I can't even touch that one. So let's just touch this guy. I'm going to play with the opacity, and I'm going to bring it down to 20%, 40%. You could see how the opacity changes of that image. Okay, any questions there? Pretty straightforward layers, yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's get into color correction. So when it comes to color correction, there's so many ways that you can color correct, and everyone has a different way to go about it. There's the old way, there's the new way, there's the in-between ways, there's tons and tons of different ways. So I'm going to show you guys two of the basic ways of going about it. So the first way, which is the way I learned in school, because some of the other things weren't around yet, you would go to Image, you'd go to Adjustments. So to adjust this image, you can adjust the brightness, the contrast, the levels, the curves, exposure, vibrance. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of things you can do here. You can make it black and white. You can affect the shadows, the highlights, desaturate it, pretty much anything you can think of. So just to show you like levels, for example, usually I'll see the levels of the dark and the light. So right now there's this huge gap in the light section because it's quite dark, the image. So if I just bring that guy up, you can see how much lighter it gets. And then if I bring the dark, it gives it that little more contrast. So you can...
Normally, is there a proper setting for that, or you just eyeball it?
This is all by feel. This is all just what you think looks good. And the tricky thing too is sometimes different screens are calibrated differently. So it might look great on your screen, and then you see it online and you're like, oh, that looks so dingy. So it's tricky. It's definitely tricky. So that's one way to go about it. And again, I'll just show you another option, like brightness and contrast. So you just play with these here, and you can bring it up or down until you feel comfortable, and then you would hit OK. But in this case, I want to show you guys one more option when it comes to color correcting, and that would be in Filter, and you're going to go to Convert for Smart Filters. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Okay, and then once you've converted for Smart Filter, you'll see that it's got the Smart Filter icon there on the layer. Just on that right there. Okay, and then we'll go back into Filter, and we'll click on Camera Raw Filter. Okay, so in here, you have tons of options. The temperature, the tint, exposure, contrast, highlights, blah, blah, blah. I can continue forever, but you can just quickly play with a bunch of things all at once and see what you're doing on your screen before you even change it. You can play with the whites and the blacks and the clarity. Where's the exposure? Let's play with the exposure a little. And maybe the vibrance, and let's see the temperature, make it warmer or colder. There's just, and honestly, there's no right or wrong. Like, everybody likes images different. Some people like them brighter, some people like them a little darker. And again, what I see on my screen could be different from there, but I think that looks about right. So because we've got that here, we can choose to turn it on or off so we can see the before and the after. And then if you, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you don't have to toggle back down to your original.
No, not at all. If you wanted to, if you weren't happy with what you did, you could just go right back to the original like that. But one thing I should also mention is these layers are stacked. So if this layer is on top of that, you're not going to see that one. You're only going to see this one because it's on top. So the ones that are the highest on the layers level is the one that's seen, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? So if I have this, for example, and I do, I don't know, la la la, I just draw something silly. So this is right now, that's on top. So you can see it on top of that. But if I bring that just underneath, you can't see it anymore unless I make this image a little bit see-through to reveal what's underneath. And then you can kind of see it, right?
Interesting watermark.
Yep, you can do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for color correction. Any questions on that one? Perfect.
Oh, what if we had to change that pink flower in the middle to blue?
I was wondering the same thing actually, but I thought we used
So selective color is a little tricky, and I'd love to dive into that right now, but that would take some time.
Okay.
Yeah, and it does take
So
some
because
finessing.
That's the type of thing we're asked a lot. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
this has to be this color instead
but-
of that color.
But normally it's just one image though that we're asked to change.
Okay.
We end up doing it in Word and it's just not great. Yeah.
Well, if we
we're
st-
asked to do that a lot.
Okay, I'm going to try and get through the basics with you guys,
Yeah, okay.
and then if we still have time, I'll definitely get back to that
Okay,
one.
all right.
No worries. So I'm not going to save that. Okay, so the next one we're going to be working on is cropping. So I'm just going to go File, Open. I'm going to go to my training images, open up crop. It's summer. I like flowers. Most of these images are going to be flowers. Aren't they beautiful? Mine too.
I know. They're just the most gorgeous blooms.
They're beautiful. Okay, so here in our tools panel, you'll see this one here is our crop tool. So as soon as we click on the crop tool, you'll notice that you automatically have this border that shows up around your image. And you also have some options up here. So you have ratio, clear, delete, cropped pixels, content aware. So delete cropped pixels means exactly that. If you crop this image and you delete the pixels, they're gone forever. But if, for example, you crop that image and you're not 100% sure you like it, you could unclick this and then always revert back. In this case, those pixels would just be negative white space anyway. It wouldn't necessarily matter, but let's just keep that on anyways. So right now we're set to ratio. So if I were to pull that down, I could do anything I want really in terms of how I want to crop it. And then you can also grab the picture itself and fit it within that cropped area. Let's say for,
Quite a bit like Word, actually.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, perfect. So say for example, I did that and I'm like, oh, I don't like it, cancel, I don't want to crop anymore. You could just click this guy here, which is just your selection tool, like your pointer or whatever have you, and then it'll give you the option, crop or don't crop. And you just say, no, I don't want to crop. And then you decide, okay, let's try this again. This time I want it to be perfectly square. So you would click on 1-to-1 square. And then it will give you a perfect square. And then you can just sort of manipulate and pull your image to fit within that square. Say for example, that square is too big. You want it a little smaller. Again, you can play with it. And then I'm just going to hit enter and it's cropped. So because we didn't delete the pixels, if I hit the crop tool again and I bring this guy back out, oh look, that petal that I cut off, it's still there. I didn't delete it forever. Yay, because I made that mistake. You can go back. Okay. All right, so now I've got this square image and it's going on Gordon. It's going to be my new bio photo. Okay? Yep. And Gordon, it requires it to be 800 pixels by 800 pixels, 72 dpi, RGB. What do I do now? Well, I'm going to go to my image and I'm going to check my size. And I'm going to look and I'm going to see that it's 3,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels. So it's way too big. And the resolution is 300. So first off, we're going to change the resolution. I always like to change the resolution first just because then it brings those pixels down for you and then it's just easier to make it smaller. So we'll bring it down to 72. And look, we're already down to 721. So now I just need to bump it to 800 by 800 and I'm good. And I've got exactly what I need. It's perfect. This is the size that they require. And let me just make sure that we are working in RGB mode. And so I click on image mode, and then I can see here that RGB is checked. So we know we're in RGB.
I have a question.
Yes.
There are many times that we're doing PowerPoints and we have images that are far too big. What do you recommend for that?
So a lot of the times raw photos, for example, like a photographer is working in raw, they're going to give you massive, massive photos. And it can be difficult because they take forever to open. And so in those cases, sometimes it's easier to open it in Bridge, but that's another beast. So ultimately what you want to do is you want to open that photo up in Photoshop and reduce the size right away. Don't even try playing with it or working with it, doing anything to it because it's just too big and it will hog too much memory
Yeah.
as you're
That's what
trying to
we've
work.
done. People can't send things.
Mhm.
So what do you recommend?
Is bringing it down to the size that you need. Reduce the pixels.
Sorry, how many?
If it's going to be screen, 72, but if it's going to be printed, 300.
Okay, the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, 72 screen. So that's the general rule.
Yes.
300 printed and 72
On screen.
That's the minimum size for reducing your pictures.
It's
so that is
yeah,
legible.
yeah, exactly for printing, yeah, and then precisely. So once you've reduced it down and you've got it to a manageable size, then you can go in and you can work on that file in Photoshop.
So we do that first.
Yeah, always make it smaller first, especially the really giant files. Perfect. So I'll just quickly touch on saving now. So I know the color is right, I know the size is right, I know it's ready to go, so I'm going to save it out. So you can go save as, you can go export, but we'll just keep it simple and we'll just do save as. So I'm going to name this flowers profile. Pick. And it defaults, always going to default as a PSD, a Photoshop document, which is what it stands for. This might look a little bit different on the PC, but generally it'll be the same. So you'll pick where it's going to go, and then you pick what type of file you want it to be. So usually you'd JPEG. Do you guys know the difference between a JPEG and a PNG?
Yes.
Perfect.
Now the PNG is transparent.
Exactly.
Is that the difference?
Yes. Yes. So if you wanted, so say for example, this white background was all cut out. So let's say I trace those flowers out and there's no white background and I want it to put it on something else,
On blue.
a blue background, for example, which I'll touch on later on. You would save that as a PNG then.
Like a signature is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Where you want to put it
We don't
over
wanna see
maybe
the white.
Yeah.
the text, so it looks genuine.
So it looks like it's on
Yeah.
top of that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's a PNG. JPEG, it's just the actual box. You can't really.
Does PNG stand for?
Oh my
Matter?
goodness.
Okay,
I don't
doesn't
know.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I did know at one point,
Yeah.
but then my brain just pushed it out.
Maybe it's
Because
negative, something negative.
we know these shortcuts, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, so you'll just save it as whatever you want. So say, for example, a JPEG and hit save. Pretty straightforward, nothing to it. What are
One isn't necessarily that much larger than the other.
sometimes PNGs are larger,
That's
yeah.
what I was thinking. Why wouldn't we just PNG everything?
Yeah, I generally do. Yeah. Depending, actually, just in case I need to play around with it in a space.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all depends, ideally, on what it's
Yeah.
being, the end result and what it's needing to do. One of the other options, which is export, or you can go legacy, you can go save for web. This is sometimes fun. I like doing this when I'm saving files for the web because it gives you all these options here. So again, you can see that I've made the image 800 by 800, and then we'll just quickly touch on everything here. So I still haven't named this file, so it's unnamed. And I can see right here exactly what it's going to be. So let's test this theory out. Right now, this image is 295.4 kilobytes. So if I were to, for example, change it to a PNG 24, what size does it now become? Oh, it's not changing.
Do you have to save it?
No, it usually just tells you right away. This is making me look like a liar.
What's the difference between the PNG 8 and 24?
I think 8 is just a little bit smaller.
Oh, okay.
256. Yeah, so this one has the transparency. Yeah, but if you wanted to change the size, for example, you could change it here too. So say I don't want it to be 800 anymore, I want it to be 500. Okay, there, now it changed. So now it went down to 125. And then you could hit save. So that's just another exporting and saving file method, which is actually kind of old now. Okay, so that's cropping. I won't save that. All right, so this is the meaty one, isolating an object. This is going to be interesting. I think this is sort of fun too. Okay. All right. So I have this tulip and I want to cut it out because I want to put it somewhere else. What I'm going to do first is, again, just best practice. I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to leave that layer alone just in case. And I'm going to start on this new layer I've created. Now, when it comes to cutting something out, there are tons and tons and tons of ways of doing it. But I'm going to show you the easiest and most efficient way, which is the magic wand, especially if the background is all one color. So what the magic wand does is it selects, wherever you click it, it's going to select that color everywhere on the page. So I'm going to click it, and everywhere it's found that color, it has selected it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit delete. And if I get rid of that layer, you'll see that these checkerboard palette has shown up. And that just means that there's nothing behind it. It's clear. Okay, so I still have a bit of color here, like the shadow and a little bit of this off-white. So I'm going to go back in and use the magic wand. I'm going to select that and I'm going to hit delete. And I'm going to delete it. I'm going to come over here, this section, and I'm going to delete that too. Going to delete that. Just go around just deleting that. And okay, I think that's, oh, so one thing I should mention, so let's just say I've deleted that. You'll notice that there's still those marching ants around because that stuff it's been deleted, but it's still selected. So in order to get rid of those marching ants, you just have to hit Command or Control on a PC, D, which means deselect. Or you can go, is there a way to just deselect here?
You know what we used to just hit the lasso.
This guy?
The lasso.
Oh, the lasso?
Does that
No.
do it as well?
No, you usually just have to deselect. So you just hit Command D and then that will go away. So I think I've deleted most of it, but I'm not quite sure because this background is kind of playing with my eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put that under my tulip. And I'm going to give it some color. So I want it, so I'm going to click on my colors here. So you've got the
So you-
default.
Sorry, you made like a transparent layer.
Yeah, so I'll do that again. Yeah. So all I did was I clicked the new layer icon, and I made a new layer. Here, we'll name it too. So we'll say this is background color, and we'll make it blue because there's no blue on that tulip, right? So that's a safe color. Okay. So right here at the bottom of your toolbar are your colors. Your default colors are always black and white. So if you double click on there, you are taken here, and you can go ahead and choose. You can slide the toggle up or down, or you could click somewhere in here, but I'm going to go into the blue section, and I'm going to pick maybe like a dark blue, and then I'm going to hit OK. So I've got this color selected. Now I just want that to be in the background. So there's many different ways of doing it. The easiest way, or the way I usually do it, is I just make a box. Doesn't matter. Okay, I can make my box all the way here. I could start it here. I could do wherever you want. Just go ahead and make a box. Okay? And then I'm just going to click on that guy just to get rid of that. And so now I've got this background color, and I can see that there are some things that I've missed. That the sorry, and you can obviously you can click on this guy and move it anywhere you like. The magic wand didn't select everything, so I'm going to use the eraser. So I'm just going to zoom in to where I feel comfortable, and then I'm going to look through my toolbar here, and I'm going to find the eraser. So if you hold that down, you'll see you've got tons and tons of different options here in every single one, but in this one there's 3, and you've got the eraser, the background eraser, and magic eraser. Today we're just going to focus on eraser, just normal eraser, keep it simple. Now,
There are different sizes though, right?
so yes, I'm actually just going to touch on that right now. So if you look, my eraser is that tiny little circle, and it's so small, and it would take me forever. Yeah. So on your keyboard, you've got left bracket, right bracket. Okay? Left smaller, right bigger. So watch as I go and I click my right bracket, it grows. And then if I go the left one, it's smaller.
Does that happen for all the tools?
Brushes, racers, yes, almost all of the tools work that way. Yes, and this is ingenious. Once you know how to do this, you'll feel so much. I'm a Photoshop whiz.
Because I've always wondered, I usually go into the menu and
Try and find a size.
Yeah.
and just make the size bigger. That's amazing.
Short keys are a savior.
Left is small, right is larger.
Yes. So now I'm just gonna click and hold that click down, and then I can erase. And you can see sometimes I just
Why does it look like you have 2?
does it. Oh, maybe it's like, oh shoot, that's so strange. I don't know why it's showing up that way. I'm sorry.
Usually it's just 1, right?
It's just one. I'll show you on my screen. Yeah, it's just the one.
No.
So I'm just gonna go
Yeah.
like that.
Wow.
That's really strange.
That's great.
They're following each other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great though. That's,
Yeah,
that's
so you could just go in,
easy.
you can zoom,
Yeah,
and then
I love that.
if you want to make
And
it
you can make it
smaller,
smaller,
yeah, and this is an easy way to just quickly cut something out. Okay, and so that was one way. I'm going to show you another way. Okay, let's just close this out, and we'll start again. So again, Photoshop remembers what you've been doing, so it has my files here. So because we just opened this one recently, it's still there. So again, I'm just going to make a new layer, leave that guy alone, and now I'm going to explain the magnetic lasso tool. Okay, this one is pretty cool. This one is, you have something to cut out, and it is going to take you some time, but you want it to be perfect. Okay, you're going to use the magnetic lasso. And what you're going to do is you're going to zoom in. And one thing I should mention is if you hold the space bar, you'll get this hand on your screen, and that will allow you to click and drag your picture. Okay? Because we're zoomed in, we're going to have to move around. Okay, so I'm going to click the magnetic lasso again, and I'm going to figure out where I want to start. Ultimately, it's wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you want to start. Now, the great thing about the magnetic lasso is it does exactly that. It's almost magnetic. So it looks for those pixels on the page. It knows that white is white, and it can see that you're following the green, so it will do it for you. It'll just sort of follow that image nicely for you, perfectly. You don't have to stress. You just have to take your time, and it will do it. So sometimes, like you can tell, I'm kind of doing this fast.
No, that's amazing. It actually
still, yeah.
sticks to the
Yeah.
edge.
So I just used that hand again, and I dragged it up.
So that would be good for hair and stuff like that, wouldn't it?
Well, if it's curly hair, no. Curly hair is so hard.
Yeah.
But yes, for definitely. I use this
So
all the
getting
time
it
with
caught.
biophotos. Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially if, like, for example, I can give you a reference. Joelle in Montreal, our lawyer there, her biophoto, she's wearing a white shirt, and the background needs to be white, but I had to cut her out. And so the magic wand would just get all the white. It couldn't find it. It couldn't define where her shirt ended and where the background ended. So I had to go in with the magnetic, and I had to trace her out. Sometimes it can be a little tricky, but for the most part, it's pretty good. And then sometimes, like, I'm not even clicking, I'm just dragging it along. But occasionally, if I get to a point, like right here, I'm going to click, and I'm going to drop an anchor there.
Oh, okay.
Aside from that, it's dropping all those anchors for me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm not clicking at all. These
So you
anchors,
just click to anchor.
yes.
automatic.
Yeah, it's automatically doing those. So I'm going
Here
to,
you might do one.
yep, I think I'm going to
That's
put one
more
there.
precise than using the magic wand, isn't
It is. It's way more precise, and you don't have to worry
Look at
about,
those bumps, I'm curious. Oh,
it's even following those bumps. Do you see this?
yeah.
I mean, it's not 100% perfect,
Yeah,
by no
yeah,
means,
yeah.
but it's certainly helpful. So I'm just
I
going
didn't
to
even know that tool. Magnetic
lasso.
tool.
Is it
Do
fairly
you have
new?
to press the control or command? Nothing, right?
I'm actually not doing anything.
Wow, it's just the mouse.
I'm just tracing it with the mouse, and it's dropping all those anchors for me. The only time I'm touching the keyboard is when I want to move, like I need to move now, I need to see, so I'm going to hold. I'm going to get that hand, and I'm going to drag it over so I can see over here now. And then I'm going to keep going, and it's just I'll drop one here because it's kind of hard. It's a tight turn there. And then again, see, I'm just dragging, I'm just tracing as careful as I can with this awkward mouse. But yeah, if you just take your time, you'll see it does a pretty damn good job. Okay, I'm kind of losing my patience now, so I'm just gonna. There we go. And then once we get all the way back, you'll see as soon as I get back to that initial one that I started, it'll give me that circle representing, okay, close the loop. Close it up. And then I click there, and now
What did you click to release it? What did you click?
I just clicked on that anchor, on that last anchor. The first anchor I started with, you just click on that guy, and that closes the loop. So now I'm just going to hit Control 0, and that gives me full screen view. Rather than hitting the zoom tool and zooming in, zooming out, just hit Control 0, and that will give you full screen. It's just a quicker way to just see the whole picture.
0, not an O.
Control 0.
0.
Yeah, 0, not O. Okay, so you can see that I now have this tulip selected. So I can do so many more things, but I don't want to confuse you guys. So at this point, what it's telling me is that if I hit delete, what's going to be deleted? Is it going to be
Flower.
exactly? So let's just do that. Let's
No, don't.
and
What did you do?
and now look, it's gone. I just deleted it, and I'm like, I don't want to delete the flower. I want to delete the background. So first, we're gonna undo that, okay? And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go select, and I'm gonna inverse my selection. So I want the opposite of what I have selected right now. So you're gonna go down to inverse and click on that guy. And now you'll see the marching ants are still around the tulip, but they're also around the whole perimeter of the page. Do you see that? So now if I click delete, the background is gone.
So that was under image?
That was select.
Oh,
Select. Inverse. Because that selection, it was selected, right? The marching ants had it selected. So your selection is what you want to inverse, which is why you go there. Okay, so now I've got, so it's still selected. There's still marching ants. What do? We go Control D. Deselect. So now nothing is selected. We're good. Okay, I've got this tulip.
Can
But
I
I-
just ask one quick
yes,
question?
of course.
When you're using different tools, does Control D get rid of any selection?
If you
On
have
the tool?
marching ants
Yeah.
on any selection on your
Yeah.
page, yes, it will get rid of it. But
And
if
how
you're
do you-
in a tool
Yeah,
and you
get
want to
rid
go
of-
to a new tool, you just
Yeah.
click on something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always have that problem. I don't know how to get rid of the existing tool,
Yeah.
and I just don't know how to do it.
Well, that magnetic glass tool is one of the very finicky tools where if you start somewhere and you're like, okay, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, I want this tool now. No, like, what are you doing? Oh my God, no,
Yeah,
I want the
that's what
paintbrush.
happens to me.
No, you know what? You have to go back to that first one you started
Yeah.
and click on it.
That's the only way.
That's the only way. And then hit deselect. And then I want to go back to full screen, Control 0.
Okay.
That's one of the only tools that once you started in it, you have to finish in it. And you just remember, where did I start? Because sometimes you've got all these points on the page and you're like, which was the first point I dropped? So that's why I always like to start bottom left, make my way up, and then back down. But you will come up with a way that works for you. Some people like to start top left, top right, but just always start in the same spot, especially when it comes to that tool. Okay, so I've got this tulip and I want to put it somewhere else. I've got this other picture, so let's open that guy up. I have this picture. So I've got this bouquet and I would love to add that tulip here for whatever reason. So the easiest way is to just, okay, so you've got your windows, right? Everybody's familiar with toggling through windows? Okay. So this is the first one we did. And this is the second one I just opened. So it'll always go this way. So your oldest to newest. Okay. So here is my page and I can only see one at a time right now. And this is kind of annoying. I want to see both of them at the exact same time. So all you're going to do is you're going to click and drag that guy out. So now they're on their own window. Okay. And this guy, yeah, let's just do the same thing. Okay. So now, and we can even move this. Let's just get rid of that for now. So look, all I see is this one and this one.
How did you do that?
I just minimized it, that's all. I just hit minimize, just this guy.
Oh, just to get rid of that.
Yeah, just to move it out of my way. I just don't want it right now for whatever reason. So I want to bring this tulip over here. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Well, let's click it and drag it. Yeah.
Okay.
Easy as that. Oh, look, I want another one. Come on. Oh, now I have two. Okay, so now I'm done with this. I don't need this. No, I don't want to save it. And let's just open this back up. And I want to put this back now. I don't want it to be just floating here. All you need to do is click it. I'm still holding it. And I'm going to slowly bring it up. And then once you see that blue line around, that means, okay, I'll take it back. And you're done. Okay, so now I added these two layers to this one layer. So this was the first one I dropped, and this is the second one I dropped. So I don't need two. I just need one. Okay, so I can either choose to not see it anymore, or I can choose to drag it to the trash can and delete it. Okay, so
When you did, sorry, when
Yep.
you did the two tulips, did it create the second layer?
Yep.
I didn't see you do it.
no, it just made that layer for me. It just automatic. As soon as you drop it, it's like Photoshop sees it as a new layer because it's not adding to that background one, especially not because it's locked, right? And it's something new that you're adding. So anytime you add something new to your file, it just adds in as a new layer automatically.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, good.
So we've got this layer, and again, I'm just gonna name it. Okay, and it's too big. It doesn't really fit,
I
right?
didn't want to mention.
Yeah. All right, so it's too big. I want it to be a little bit smaller. So you're gonna make sure you're in this tool, which is just general selection. It's like having a pointer or like the arrow tool. Okay, and you're gonna go into transform. So there's different ways. I can give you guys the easy shortcut, which is just Control T. And it's pretty easy to remember because you want to transform it. You want to change the size. So you hit Control T, or I never even do it the hard way or the long way, so I'm not quite sure.
Control T is good for me,
Okay.
because we're used to Dennis's shortcut.
Oh, perfect. So we're just going to hit Control T, and then we have this option.
Okay.
So we can bring it up, or if we grab the corner, now you guys know that if you hold Shift, it scales things proportionately, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I didn't think I needed to explain that. So you just hold that down again and bring it down to the size that you want. And then once you're done, so again, yeah, like we don't want to do this because
No.
it'll squish it. So I'm happy with that. And now I want to get out of this tool, like I'm done. You hit Enter or Return, and you're done. And so there's your tulip. And there's so many more options once you're here. You can give it like a little drop shadow. You can do all kinds of things to make it look a little more photorealistic, like as if it was always there, but that's a little more advanced. So I'm just mindful of time. It's already 3 and I only got like halfway through everything. There was a lot more stuff I wanted to show you guys, but like I said, like we could do this again.
Yes, yes.